Hey guys, welcome back for another Isky tribute roadster build. 75 years of Isky cams, and Dad is currently working on a roadster to get it to SEMA 2023. It is a crunch period. These build videos are a little behind, but he honestly didn't start working on it hardcore until July. Seems to be like we have quite tight deadlines around here constantly. So anyways, he is working on that right now. In this video though, you will see the last little bit of metal prep for the body. Not body work, but metal body work, getting it just to a good starting condition. So check that out. Pretty neat to see it transform from something that was really rough and beat up to a workable body. So check that out now.
What I'm doing is welding up the gap in the panel where the hinge would come out, because we're not going to run hinges. The door is going to be bolted or welded shut, and I don't want each panel, the door and this front of the quarter or body panel, have a gap in here. So I'm grinding, and this was all beat, bent, broke, missing pieces. So I'm actually using some of the wire as body filler. I don't want to put Bondo on it. I don't have to, because the door is going to be bolted shut. It's kind of hard to work around. So I'm going to take that ugly weld and try to make it look like it was part of the stamped quarter panel. It's not often that you can get to the back side and work a dent out, so I can weld more weld there and grind it down. It's starting to look like it belongs there, but I can beat it, so I'm going to try that for now, and then I'll probably have to put weld on it, but it'll be a lot thinner. As long as I can get it on an anvil like that, I can do a lot of work with it. Okay, I'm going to grind just a little bit more on that, but I think I'm going to have to weld now. So I've already taken that same gap out of the door, and I'm just finishing it on the quarter panel, or on the front of the quarter panel here. So I'm going to run a little more weld right on top to fill those low spots just up through here, and I'll grind it flat, and then I'll work on this bottom one. See, it kind of looks, you know, when you see the door gap, you won't see all this in here. It'll be bolted together tight, or probably welded. But that gap right there on both of them would really show. You know what I'm actually going to do? I'm going to do that with silicone bronze, because it's almost like a body part. So that's bronze. Just using it like lead, just filling the low spots with it. So I'll grind that down now, and that's permanent body filler. Not plastic. This corner was mangled. It was just twisted, bent, cracked, broken, missing pieces. So it's gonna look pretty good. It's gonna be in pretty good shape for the shape it's in. It worked really well, except since I'm doing it, I'm going to go back and add just a little bit right there, just so it'll all blend out. That'll be a flat piece of steel instead of mangled, beat up, broken steel or plastic filler. The nice thing about using silicone bronze is you don't melt the parent metal like you would if you were welding it. You just get it hot like if you were doing lead. It's actually brazing, so you're just putting the bronze on top of the steel. It doesn't get as hot and it's not as risky as blowing a hole in it. Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit of hammering, but that's what we end up with. That's pretty much a metal panel, pretty close to the right shape. I think there's a bump right here. I'm gonna peck that down a little bit. Then I'll do the same here. Then I'll bolt it together. I bolted the back of the door onto the back of the body panel. I'll bolt the front of the door on, or the front of the body panel at the front of the door, and then we got this big piece of garbage underneath. Once I get this attached and in place, I'll cut this out and build a whole new lower section. It's basically making chicken salad because it's pretty bad shape. So there's the front of the body for the passenger side where the door was. This was mangled this morning. Now it's back together. For the most part, it's straight. You can see the welding inside, and then I did some silicone bronze where I needed to in here. Down low, there was a few pinholes. You can see them all through this thing. Some of these I'll fill, but I'll probably, actually on this piece, I'll probably cut it back here like I did the other one and make the panel from there forward. But this is all solid. It just had a few holes that had rusted through. So I went ahead and brazed those up and then ground them down. So now this is a solid panel. I'm getting ready to clamp it on to the door and drill and bolt it like I did the back of the door. So it'll look like a door instead of like the other one where it's just stamped in. I'm gonna leave the gaps, but once I get this bolted on, I'll cut this panel off, replace it, make a panel for it, and pretty much it'll be ready to bolt to the other one. Well, I'm gonna work on the back panel, make sure it's good, and the firewall is already good. I'll probably replace the center part of it, but I'll bolt it back together, and then the body will be back in one piece. It's actually gonna look good. So this panel is done. I've got it all put back together, straightened out, and we're going to clamp it to the door. And line it up. It'll take a little bit to get it all lined up. I'm gonna clamp it to the door, check it out, then drill it and bolt it. Let's look at this side now. Okay, so what I don't like is how it doesn't fit the door contour. It's pretty good down to here, and then it sinks in. Oh, it needs to go out at the bottom. Maybe that'll help. That definitely helps. Okay, so this right here is sunk in. So I can fix that with body work. I'm gonna have to do a lot of body work on it. So for the most part, it's good enough. What I'm gonna do now is drill it. This side of the car was so bad, most people wouldn't even save it. And I wouldn't if I had an option, but I don't. Not easily. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, nice. That really fixed a lot of ugly. So the rest of that can be fixed with filler bodywork when I actually get to it. I'm gonna cut the rust out now, and then have this replacement panel for the bottom of it. Okay, so now that rusty old beat up, crooked, messed up, what other adjective can I use? Total piece of crap side of a tea bucket body. It'll look better. Even with the piece cut out, it looks better because it's not a big rusty hole. So pretty much everything from here up is good, solid. Now I'll make a panel to fill that. There's a few pinholes right here. I'm going to use the silicone bronze and braze those from the back side just to keep from getting into that curve because it's not that bad. I'll make it solid. So I'm gonna grind the sharp edge off of this, take some measurements, put a piece of metal up here on the table and cut a panel. I'll have to do some work on it, planishing hammer, English wheel to make it get a little round, and then I'll bend the flange. It'll be a 90-degree break, but I'll use the shrinker stretcher to make the contour because that's not straight down there. I'll actually match it to the driver's side, turn it upside down, and I'll make both those panels the same. You can see that driver's side's a solid piece now. A little bent, it's got some dents and some body work that has to be done, but that's a nice solid piece. This one will be too here in another hour or two. So I'm down to this, just the turtle deck itself. The lid is now solid, straight, ready for some primer and body work. It won't take much. It's actually very solid. see that it's very solid. When I first got a hold of it, it just like this, and the whole top was an oil can. So I've cut mini slices in it, put it back together, TIG brazed it, silicone bronze rod, ground it off, so everything's really good. There's no oil cans in it. Now, I don't want to go outside, fire up the big giant 300-pound pot sandblaster to do this little piece. That's all that's left. It's so bad, it's so bent, every corner, every piece of it is bent. I've decided I'm gonna cut it into 4 pieces. I can get it in my blast cabinet, and I can use the anvil and the hammers and dollies to get it straight, get it worked out, get it blasted, weld it all back together, and nobody's ever gonna know. Just like that lid, it'll be perfect. But, so there's not really a good place to cut it. I'm just gonna cut it right where I want to. I'll just cut this panel out and weld it back together. All right, now I can handle that in my booth. It's so much easier to patch. You can see how bent, beat up, rusted. Just got body work on it. It's bowed out. All this is gonna have to be cut and relieved and shrunk. It's just really bad if you look down the top of that. It looks like an ocean. Like a friend of mine used to say, it's friendly. You wave at it and it waves back at you. That's even worse. So it's basically a piece of garbage, but give me a few minutes here and you'll see it differently. So first side or first section of this thing is blasted. It took 45 minutes, an hour, I don't know, to blast it in my glass bead cabinet. The beauty of that is the big 300-pound pot, you stand a good chance of warping something that's already warped anyway. I don't want to do more damage, but it's down to bare metal now. Got a hole in it. Somebody had piled Bondo on here. I had to grind that off. Sunk in here. See a crease? It's all creased. They've chiseled the floor out of it. You can see how rough that bottom lip is. Back in 1923, they gas welded. So look at that. That's pretty embarrassing. I don't care who you are. That's some ugly stuff. Inner lip is all bent up. You can see where somebody's fixed a crack in it at one time, gas welded it back together. So pretty much everything about it's junk. But now is when I'll set it on a dolly, start beating, cutting, shrinking, welding it back together. There's a lot to do, but that's something to start with. Much different than what it came from. There's then and now. So I'll have to do each piece individually, but we'll get something to work with here. All right, so welded the end up. We've put it on the anvil and beat it out. This was cracked at one time, and whoever welded it back together had this at such a bad angle. I had to cut it loose again and weld a 1/4-inch gap up there, but it's getting pretty close. Now, one of the scary parts of it was this giant egg that it had. It was just stretched so bad. Somebody beat it out from the inside so much. I X'd it. You can see my cuts. You can see the different levels. But this panel here, this triangle, is pretty much where it needs to be. You can see that's a 1/4 inch. This was bowed up a 1/4 inch. So what I'm going to do is force them down, do a little hammering on it. This one needs a little sharpening right in that corner. Make them all line up at the points here. And then I'll tack everything, and then I'll beat it, tack it, grind it, beat it, tack it, grind it until this whole panel is down flat. I'll have to do some more body work, but this needs to be flat all the way through. And it looked like a pregnant whale right there. It was bowed up 1/4 of an inch. So we're getting ready to work on that. That cut was, that was a wide cut, close to 1/16 of an inch. Now when I press these two down, that cut's almost closed up. That's how much it's stretched. Once that's tacked back together, that's almost gonna touch. So I'm gonna start tacking. You can see and I've pushed this down some, and it's still 1/4 inch different. And that's just how bad that egg was. Okay, so we cut, it looks like Frankenstein, pushed down, welded or brazed, and it's back together. I'm gonna grind the welds down here in just a few minutes. But before I do, you can see down the side of this, looks like a banana. So it's so thin. I mentioned to Nolan that these T models are so thin and flimsy, and he said, I would have thought they were really strong and thick. I said, absolutely the opposite. So I measured, just out of curiosity. These panels are 30 thousandths. That's not rusted sheet metal. That's what, 22 gauge or something. It's like beer can level. There's a few panels on it that are thicker. I'd call that 040. So this is a little bit thicker. What's 040? 18 gauge, I think, something like that. A little bit thicker in certain areas, but the actual body, the doors, the cowl, all that stuff, the firewall is very thick, but these panels are very flimsy. So what I'm gonna do is, I thought it out. I don't have a big planishing hammer to make this rib, and I think what I'm gonna do is just leave it because it's just really beat up, broke, bent. And I'm gonna use this piece of 14 gauge that I just cut and bit, and I'm gonna add it in here and weld it, braze it all back together, and use it as a reinforcing strip. I'm gonna clamp it in and then take it over and start tacking. I think as I go and I keep bending, clamping, I think we'll pull that all down into shape and it'll actually look good. 22 gauge is very thin. Henry was building them as cheap as he could. Okay, see, that's made that pretty much arrow straight through here. I'll work on it just a little bit more, but I don't know if I can. That's really about as straight as it's gonna get. So once I weld that in, I'll go back to repairing the dents. But the way it is so flimsy, it twists and pops and everything, so I can't tell what I gotta repair. It's just changing shape. So I'm gonna go over there and start brazing this piece in, and then I'll seam seal it. That gives it a good heavy place to put a floor, attach the frame, attach the side skirts that we're gonna put on here. So we're moving along. So we spent some time bashing, beating, welding, and brazing the rear panel and got it decent. You know, everything on it's bent, it's beat, but it's really just a thin layer of mud will fix that. Feels friendly, it weighs back, but it's really not that bad. So what we did was beat it into shape, put it up here, put these fancy little clamps on here, and it just lined up perfect. So these are cool because they separated the right distance, the thickness of the saw blade that you cut out, about a 32nd of an inch. So this side's tacked together. I'm gonna take them off, put the other side on. But the nice thing is, when I started, one of the things that really bothered me was this lip. It was smashed down. I don't know how or why, but it was caved down. It was really far down. So it should be a nice 1/8 inch lip all the way around. You know, keep the rain from going in, keep the water out of it. But I beat that up and worked on it on both sides. We fixed the back, and now if you can tell, it's sitting flat on the table, The sides are vertical. This is all sitting flat. Everything is really shaped well. I think when I get the other side on, then put the front in, it'll have to have a coat of mud on the whole thing, lid and everything, but it's going to be a really nice piece. Any rust that was rusting through, I've brazed everything, and you know, that's not going to be covered up with holes with Bondo. It's going to be brass, and it just really seems to be good. We'll find out here in a little bit. I'll have all 4 pieces tacked back together and we'll know. There it is. So finally, I'm ready to build a chassis. Body's ready for body work. Turtle deck's ready for body work. Lots of hours. It's welded back together. The 4 pieces are welded back together. It's squared up. It's straightened up. You know, I know it looks like hammered dog poop here, but it's a start is what it is. Everything is flat enough and worked out enough, oil canless. It's ready for body work. So yeah, it'll have a thin coat of mud all over it. No big deal. It's gonna paint, it's gonna look good. I looked up some turtle decks online, even went back and looked at pictures of Ed's. I almost, if I painted it black right now, it would look about like Ed's. You gotta remember, it's a 100-year-old piece, and Ed's was too. And Ed's has been used and abused over the years, and it's wavy, and you know, it's got gaps and bends and what have you, just like this one, just like the ones I saw online. So rather than buying a different turtle deck, which we could have done, we could have found a different one and paid whatever, $500, $1,000 plus shipping it in here, and still had to do a bunch of work. We had this one. We didn't know what it looked like when we bought it, but as you can see now, it looks pretty good. So the trunk lid is on, it's bolted. I actually bolted it on to the hinges it normally is riveted on. The trunk lid actually had a reproduction latch in it, so I had to have a key That's a piece of stainless tube, a washer, and a little flag that I made on it. Ground it down where it would fit in the hole of the latch. And just like in the T model days, turn it, lift the lid. All the reinforcing's reinforced in the lid. I added that piece of tubing up there to support the latch because the latch riveted to the lid before. I filled the holes, but there was rivets through the top of the lid, and when you shove it, you close it, you could see the lid flex. So I went ahead and added a piece of tubing, but as you can see, the latch works good. Oh my goodness, there's latched. It's latched just like the car, just like it should. Turn the key, lift it with the key. Latched. So it's all squared up, it's braced. I put a new brace in the front of it that will bolt to the back of the body because it used to nail to the body. Around, down through here and around that corner, it was nailed to that body with a piece of wood behind it. So now it had these 4 bolts, I guess, in the body, but the bottom of it just bolted to the frame and nailed to the body. You can see this where it's set. There's little nail holes. These 4 holes are still there. So my tube will run across here and I'll drill and bolt it on. So this thing will be bolted top and bottom. It'll be really strong. But at this point, it's been metal treated. That's what the gold look is. It's been, I call it acid treating. It is acid, so it's been metal conditioned. It's ready for primer, and that's the next step. I'm gonna do it tonight. Get it in black epoxy primer. Tomorrow I can bolt it to the body. We've got the frame material here. Got a couple cross members. We found a Model A cross member on eBay. So I'm gonna blast it, clean it up, grind some welds off of it. Got a new Speedway Motors front cross member. We got tubing. Tomorrow I will be building a chassis. Pretty exciting. So that was the hardest part of the whole car, getting the body up into shape and the turtle deck. That was really bad, and that was beyond bad. So now we're past that. We can move forward and build a hot rod, just like Ed did, 1938.
All right, and that is a wrap for this video and a wrap for metal bodywork. So we are currently on the Rebel Rally, Megan and I. Well, we're about to start it. We are using the last few minutes that we get our phone. You guys have seen those videos by now to get this stuff uploaded. So I hope you enjoy. I apologize that there's not more voiceover, but I wanted to get this video out and to you. So I'm going to go add this into the video, upload it, and then we'll see you guys soon. But keep in mind, SEMA is coming up very soon, October 31st to November 4th. If you guys are at SEMA, make sure to stop by the Isky Cams booth and check the Roadster out. And if you're not going to be there, stay tuned for more of the videos. All right, that's it. See you guys soon. As always, be happy, go fast, and stay pretty. I will see you guys next time.